You always get that moment when people's eyes kind of light up when they see a model. So whenever you put one on the table or you kind of reveal one, there's an instant impact, and there is this connection that people have with physical models that you just can't get from a screen.
As an architect, you often worry, what is a client seeing? I know what I'm showing, but what are they actually seeing? What are they seeing in the drawings? How experienced they are with built form? It is so much easier to work and talk around a model. Anyone can talk about this. It sort of unlocks the situation.
I think there's always a joy. I mean, architects like creating something. There's something very satisfying around the making process. And I think you learn in the making process.
We've invested quite heavily within the practice in Bath and London with 2 model making setups. The impact that's had has been phenomenal in terms of being able to integrate it into the design process, encouraging architectural staff to get involved, and the knock-on that that then has back to the design and development of a project. We have a soft workshop and we have a hard workshop. So the soft workshop is all our low-level risk equipment, things like laser cutters and 3D printers. And then we've got our hard workshop, which has all of the slightly more dangerous equipment in it. We've got a couple of table saws. So we tend to have one that we use predominantly just for wood and one that we use predominantly for plastic. I'm a big fan of these machines. I think I'll be really upset if we lost these.
So as a student and a young architect, pretty much all I did was make models in the firms that I worked in, and it was sort of ingrained into the design process. The first thing I like is that we have to wait a long time to see our buildings, and so in a way it's an early gift and a chance to start engaging with a physical thing. And the second thing is that, like probably most architects, inside here there's a craftsman trying to get out, and this is our chance to actually make something and create something. So this is a favourite. This has gone back and forwards to Cambridge in my bag. This is a little model that is very simple and describes a concept. We don't yet know how that's being evolved in the detail, but it's a way of conveying a simple idea around 3 crescents creating a set-piece landscape. And it's surprising how much a model like this, that someone can hold, someone can touch, someone can look down, gets you an awful long way.
I love seeing process models, particularly in the summer exhibition, but also when you go to an architect's office. It's such an important way of informing, thinking around massing, understanding how a building has come to be, which is in relationship to, very often its context, its relationship to form, why it might be lifted off the ground, how the pushes and pulls of a design process come around. And I think for a public to understand that this building doesn't come fully formed into something, it comes through this really rigorous process of practicalities of urban planning and artistic impulse as well. You know, it's never one thing, it's all of those things coming together. The summer exhibition is a really important part of the Royal Academy. It is the largest open submission exhibition in the world, and it's incredible the number of works we get in every year. Architecture has also always been a part, because we have always been run by artists and architects. And I think that material choice is really important, how you convey the essence of a project that is perhaps a little bit conceptual, and it's not just around the specifics of how it's going to be built, but what that project means. And I think quite often, those are the ones that capture public imagination. There's a curiosity in it.
I think one of the big things with the FCB models is timber. We use timber extensively throughout the projects. It's a very good modelling material for obvious reasons, but the kind of sympathetic quality that you get from timber often complements a lot of our design work. We do use plastic, but we use it very sparingly. It often can give some really great visual effects. Things like the ability to light plastic and play with that can often produce some fantastic models. Cast materials are very popular, so we try to do that wherever possible. So something we do quite a bit is facade studies. So we got a few different iterations essentially of the same design. We then went on to create a silicon mould. So essentially a rubber mould. And then from this, we're able to cast multiple versions of those forms. Often they're quite cool to the touch, for example. You'll get certain inconsistency, so you might get air bubbles, you might get cracks within the surface finish. And it's that kind of natural rawness that people tend to respond really well to.
I would say we probably push the boundaries on the material choices for real high-profile presentation models because they're often a piece in their own right rather than a part of the development. But typically, we have sustainable minds and we try to use low-value materials and make them work quite hard. And that, in a way, is part of the psychology of treating this as a development model. It's a throwaway thing. It's okay to sacrifice it and move on. So we work with corrugated card, and my favourite's almost probably just the humble grey card, which is incredibly good at being able to be laser cut.
We're running two different types of printers at the moment. So we've got this Ultimaker and Form 2, two different sort of approaches to 3D printing. They've been great for us in the practice in terms of what they allow us to do. So traditionally, certainly with more complex geometry, so organic forms, anything with curves, very hard to machine with some of the equipment we've got. Now with a good CAD model, we can churn it out in a couple of days, or if that, from start to finish. I think what FCB's done really well is they've sort of stayed at the top of the game in terms of keeping up to date with those advancements in technology. The quality, the speed, the efficiency, all of those kinds of things have been massively improved by things like 3D printers and laser cutters, but often you need something to complement that. You need the contrast. So we really do focus on, for example, a timber model that's been sort of very carefully crafted, but complement that with a digital print, for example, which then gives us that extra dimension, that extra level.
There was a period of time in the early, mid-2000s where I remember walking in to one of the rooms and that year and just really noticing how white things were. It was a sort of moment at which 3D printing suddenly became something that everyone could do. And there was a definite shift in that. And a few years later where CNC milling became the thing that everyone was doing. You could sort of smell, you walked in, you sort of smelled, there was a smell to it.
This was a model about urban grain and space and form. And so what feels right when you're going to place a new piece in the middle of an incredibly sensitive heritage location and it feel right. And in this, for example, being able to model these fairly austere facades, but in quite a lot of detail. This is laser cutter technology, it's brilliant. We can mock up a complex and then add a new piece which has a very distinct grain to it, and sort of wonder whether or not there's a harmony here with the collective still.
In terms of the kind of materials that we choose to use these days, we're always looking for more sustainable options. One thing I'm really keen to do within the practice is, to a certain degree, let those materials dictate our models in the future. They might not be the best suited for making models from a traditional point of view. They might be difficult to cut, they might be difficult to machine, there might be implications from that. But I think that we should embrace those challenges, and those materials, hopefully, will give some of the models we create quite a unique appearance.
Right now, in fact, for the last 40 years, sustainability is at the front of our design. You could ask yourself, well, how does that relate to what we do with our models? Because often it's the stuff of spreadsheets, but actually you can use models for abstract conceptual pieces, or you can use them to describe some form of agenda. And we did a version of one of these for the Royal Academy show last summer, and we picked this scheme. In fact, it was one of the sort of next models that we made after this one. What's interesting about this scheme is that its carbon embodiment at the point of when the building is finished and ready for use is in the negatives. It's making a positive contribution to the environment. And so we made a model, wanted to make a model to explain this, and it got selected for the summer show, and it was really thrilling to be in that room of models, which I always think is about the best part of the summer show.
Each year there is a different selection committee for the summer exhibition, which is drawn from the Royal Academicians. So every year you see this tone, but invariably what I've noticed is it's so often the models that captures the public imagination. I think, they love delving into looking at a model, the little worlds that open up in those objects, those things.
Some of the nicest models are made out of simple foam board, fast make models, and starting to play. And there's two reasons to do that. There's one is to better understand space and light, and the other one is actually just to have a good time, and going back to the sort of the making and the playing. And this is something that I think is at risk of being lost. The less we draw, the less we make, the less we're sort of thinking or freed up to think as we're doing.
I think there's almost a relationship with physical models that stems right back to childhood. It's quite a natural thing to interact with physical objects, which maybe we're a little bit disconnected from these days. And it always amazes me when you'll see something like a child walk past the window of our London office and press their face up against the window to look at one of the models. It's a sense of being able to kind of almost shrink yourself down to the scale of the model and imagine yourself walking through it and interacting with it. And I think that does stem from a real kind of childhood playfulness that we've all got somewhere in us.